let's just say that I'm doing a quick YouTube video tonight because, to make a long story short, I, as far as I know, graduate on Friday, and so things have been really hectic, things have been really busy, and I was going to do a more extensive YouTube video. However, let's see, okay, if I go into classes and grades, I can give you, well, one of my grades I can give you because I calculated it. In social work, it is a C. And in Hebrew class, I don't know the exact grade, but I know that it was an A. And I got 16 grade points. And my GPA so far is spiked up to 2.269. Honestly, I wasn't the best student, and I was going through a lot. And I'm trying to finish up here. And as far as the social work grade, here's what I can give you. And you saw the video that I did for social work. And the comment that she actually left on my PowerPoint thing, a lot of it unfortunately had to do with APA. But the comment that she left on my PowerPoint slide, let's see, doing the math here, 23 times 4 is, and I'm not a mathematician, so 3 times 4, 92, so I got a 92 on the presentation, and I got a 2 on the extra credit. Let's see, she says, nice attempt. In the future, I would recommend less text and find a way to describe the 2 peer review articles as you breeze right by them. Yeah, part of that has to do with, okay, I wanted to breeze by the articles and focus more on the subject, and a part of it too is, let's just say that I have an APA manual that I'm definitely doing for the book buyback. And I had talked about how or if I didn't talk about it, well, my granddad had a double bypass surgery about a year back or so, and he just recently passed away. And to make a long story short, I was definitely angry about some things at first, but I'm learning to forgive my granddad, and unfortunately, to use my own family's words, it is what it is, and there's nothing that I can do about what they're saying about my granddad. And I was very frank about it, though, when it first happened. And, you know, people might get mad at me. I may even lose friends over this, but you know what? It's going to come to a point where, God willing, things are going to come out, and people are going to find out. I mean, even, let me just read you part of the obituary so you get an idea of, just for example, how much was missed in the obituary. Just how much was, I mean, first of all, like my sister said, he looked terrible. And sad part is, well, people have said that, you know, I have good looks and stuff, so if anything, I would have gotten the good genes even from his side, because his mom was very, very beautiful young woman, and I assume his dad was very handsome, because I don't know, but when you look at Pop-Pop, and, I mean, Grandma wasn't that bad looking either, and so that's where, if I have any good looks, I get them from, but, I mean, also, they just missed so much, and, like, they didn't talk about that he served tax papers to Nixon. They never mentioned that. Oh, they said he was born in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, which is complete bull. He was born in Sugar Notch. And they said, for example, let's see, they talk about his brothers. They don't talk about, for example, they don't talk about any of his brother's kids. You know, for example, Jamie, who has really in many ways taught us a lot. And let's see, it's just talking about, let's see, it's just so much here that they totally missed. And I mean, let me put it this way too. They mentioned my Aunt Mary. If she saw this obituary, it's I mean, who knows? Maybe it's a mercy that, as mad as I am at my cousin Kevin, maybe it's a mercy he didn't tell her, as far as we know. And I mean, like I said, so much was missed here. For example, they mention his family like this. They say, oh, and I'm trying to find it. It says, predeceased in death by his parents, Anthony and Mary Czarnecki, his brother Francis Czarnecki, and his grandson Ryan Miskell. They never talk about the rich history that was behind. I mean, they could have mentioned too, oh, you know, he was the grandson of immigrants, and he was the son of an immigrant who survived the pogroms. And they could have mentioned that both parents were Jewish, and that's incidentally, and I have nothing to hide on this, that's incidentally what, for some reason, they have, as far as I know, kept on the Wikipedia entry too. And let's see, yep, they kept it on the Wikipedia entry for once. I've had to go in and edit things anonymously, but it talked about the last name Czarnecki, and I talked about how it was used among non-noble families, I guess because I cited it so much. And they talk about how they kept a part about where he served tax papers to Nixon. And I remember when Dad, you know, he talked about how they served tax papers to Nixon, and Pop-Up's jaw clamped up just like Dad said it would. And then Pop-Up talked about how the information was sensitive, and then I had talked to someone and they said, oh, you know, the sensitive label expires after 1990. Well, for lack of a better term, Nixon's been dead. Pop-Up's dead now. And, you know, so much rich history just missed because they had to make Pop-Up look like someone that he wasn't on one hand, and on the other hand, well, yeah, they made him look like someone that he wasn't, and they missed a lot of what he was. And just amazing to me. And I mean, even, and rightly so, my sister was very angry when she read the obituary, and, you know, it would have been tempting for me to be angry too, but a lot of it's like, you know what, unfortunately Pop-Up would have wanted it this way too, and it says a lot about him, and God willing, the truth's going to come out in time. And, I mean, it's already come out, because, I mean, you can see that you know, they kept a thing on the Wikipedia entry. I was very surprised, and everything I cited, and he did say that over the phone. He said something along the lines of, if we had any Jewish blood, I don't know about it. I remember that was in a conversation. He was very begrudging about the fact that he had served down at Fort Knox, and great-grand-uncle Ed was down there. And I remember when the double bypass was exaggerated into quintuple bypass, and basically it was December 13th, so it was Scott's birthday, and it's gotta be hardest on Scott because he just turned 18, and suddenly the next day Papa passes away, and so it's like, hey, your 18th birthday is suddenly ruined. And so what happened was, Pop-Up had been admitted to the hospital that night because he had the dysplasia finally turned into leukemia, and they were going to do chemo. Well, he died the next day because he had said that he was in a little bit of pain, so they gave him morphine, and within 5 minutes, basically, he just passed like that. And, you know, who knows, and the record will show. I mean, I can even read you, and I mean, I talked about where, let me go back and do this just so, I mean, I cited everything pretty much on Wikipedia, and I'm sure some people are going to see the video and remove this. Well, you know what? I have it on my blog in case that happens, and like I said, I cited everything, and for some reason they kept it, so, you know, it's just that, first of all, I would have no reason to lie. Second, Aunt Mary, who was the one who told me about everything that happened, and That reminds me, I gotta get back to writing the family history memoir. If I go, let's see, the Social Security Index, I can read you, because even Aunt Mary didn't know about this, as far as I recall. This is great-grandma's last residence. It was listed as 21108 Millersville, Anne Arundel, Maryland. She had never lived at Pop-Up and Grandma's house a day in her life. She lived in Ashley, Hanover Township, and Sugar Notch, Pennsylvania. Never had she been outside of the state of Pennsylvania in terms of residence. So, as I said, I would have no reason to lie. Aunt Mary would have no reason to lie. The truth is going to come out about Jack Czarnecki, and when it does, we can all only hope that Jack Czarnecki, even if everyone else refuses to, or quite a few other people refuse to, we can only hope that Jack Czarnecki made peace with his maker, and that he's with his mom and with Ryan and with others, instead of just quite a few people I could think of, possibly. And as I said before, I don't know what great-granddad saw when he was dying, but what happened was he had jumped off of Falls River Bridge, and he suddenly changed his mind. He had tried to grab onto a rock. He couldn't swim, and 3 hunters had to grab him and pull him out, and by the time that he had reached shore, he was dead, and he was also gasping and fluttering when he was, just dying, and he couldn't make it. And just makes you wonder what great-granddad saw. And it's just amazing that Pop-Up died that quickly, and many of us, well, at least a few of us, are wondering about that. And someone recalled to me, well, let the dead bury their own dead, and it's part of the reason why I'm not attending the funeral. I mean, I have exams and stuff anyway, but I'm sure that so many people who are going to be at the funeral hate me, or don't know the truth, or don't want to talk about the truth, that it would be not worth my time or worth their time if I came to the funeral. And instead of being like Pop-Up, who they, instead of being like Pop-Up, and as I said, instead of being like Pop-Up, who they just totally make out to be someone that he wasn't, I'm going to be like great-grandma. And, I mean, for lack of a better term, her obituary is not as rich as it could have been. And I don't know who wrote it, but I will tell you this. The obituary that was written for her is a heck of a lot more rich than what was written for Pop-Up. And it says, for example, born in Ashley on July 28, 1913, she was the daughter of the late Michael and Anna Trudniak. And I mean, that's where I was even able, in terms of her, just to get started and find out about a lot of stuff that I hadn't found out. And I mean, if you compare that to Pop-Up's obituary, he just kind of skims over and says, let's see, he says, predeceased in death by his parents, Anthony and Mary Czarnecki, his brother Francis. So basically he skims over all that happened, and it's amazing what they do here. Like I said, I mean, they don't even talk about when he was born. They say he was born in Wilkes-Barre, which, again, I said is, bull. He was born in Sugar Notch, and it's funny, too, though, because, he's not being buried in a Catholic cemetery. It says, against his wishes, they are having a viewing. I remember that Aunt Mary specifically expressed to me that, on one hand, he wanted to be buried with no calling hours. On the other, he wanted to be cremated, which, within Reformed Judaism anyway, is acceptable. And honestly, I think Pop-Up would have been a Reformed Jew if he were honest with himself. but he also wanted to be buried with no calling hours. But then again, that's very Reformed too. You know, Reformed, Conservative, Orthodox, they all share that. And especially his grandmother came from a very Orthodox family. And so okay, the other thing too is that they're having a viewing, which he obviously did not want. And the thing about the being buried with no calling hours, that's what his great-great-uncle John did. And great-great-uncle John, for as wicked as he was, at least observed something of Jewish tradition and sent the message, yes, we're Jews. And by the way, great-great-uncle John was buried within 2 days. And it's funny too, because they also pick up on a very Jewish tradition here. They say, you know, putting the viewing aside and all that, and it says, in lieu of flowers, the family has requested donations be made either of the following organizations. And that's what Jews do. We usually don't do flowers. We usually don't do all that shtick. And just, it's amazing how, like I said, it's amazing how they made him to be something that he wasn't, and they missed so much, even of the bad stuff, that at least contributed to a rich history. And I think about that obituary where the grandmother died, and her children had written about how she really was, and it made people see that, you know what, at least there are some people who, even if they're not perfect themselves, they're willing to be honest. And that should have been the opportunity that was taken with Pop-Pop. But again, in my family's words, it is what it is. And like I said, people are going to hate me over this. I'm sure people hate me now. I'm probably going to lose some friends over this. But as I said before, I want to be like great-grandma. I want to talk about it. I want to learn from Pop-Pop's mom's example. If nothing else, I don't want to learn from Pop-Pop. And he even told me once, you disappoint me. And I confronted him on it, and he said that he would do it all over again. And that's just the memories that I carry, Jack Czarnecki, and I carry some other memories too, and I could go into those. And how long have I been making this video anyway? 17 minutes. Well, I could just round this up for 20 minutes. I remember one argument where Pop-Pop had called, probably going to get in trouble for this if anyone hears me, but he had called Asians Orientals, and Dad said, Asians, Dad. And Pop-Pop said, anyway, the Asians. And then Pop-Pop said there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and Dad said weapons had been moved to Syria, and then Pop-Pop said something, and then Dad said, you can't change history, Dad. And I mean, that's of course the irony, because, hey, they tried to change a little bit of history in the obituary, and anyway, you know, there are definitely things beyond the surface, and if nothing else, I've learned that I want to be like the Mary Trudniak, who is conveniently glossed over in his obituary, and I want to be able to put everything out there instead of this long, kvetchy obituary that, if nothing else is just a Bubby Mesa. I want an obituary that if I ever die, I mean, because I could get raptured if I'm lucky, but if I ever die, I want an obituary that puts everything out there, is honest, and I mean, too, great-grandma had no control over this one, because people are going to say, well, if you look at her obituary, it says that she was survived by one great-great-granddaughter. Unfortunately, she had no control over that, and I don't know who wrote that into the obituary. Probably Pop-Pop, unfortunately, since Madison was considered his great-great-granddaughter. She's considered his great-granddaughter here, and just, like I said, it's just amazing, and not everyone is gonna well, let me just put it this way, not everyone is gonna have the same memories, or just look at the obituary and go, oh, you know, Jack Czarnecki was really a good guy, because, you know, God willing, the truth about Jack Czarnecki is going to come out. And what you see in the obituary is just not Jack Czarnecki in a lot of ways. And what could have been seen in the obituary, just not there, or if it is there, it's completely glossed over, and just so much is missed. And I could continue to be angry at them, and there are moments where I am going to be angry at them. But the sad part is, Papa would have approved this obituary, and it just shows you what his life was like. And it just shows you that one can only hope that he made peace with his maker. And that's all I gotta say.